Ya, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. Saya ingat kali ini saya nak lecture tentang inflation ya. This is part of the subject dalam kursus kita dan saya harap you all semua boleh mendengar apa yang disampaikan ini dan memahaminya lah. I think inflation is very important to understand simply because it has an effect. It has an effect on the value of money. So that's why we want to see what is meant by inflation and how it affects our calculation actually. So let's go. Okay, if you look at chapter 4, equivalence calculation under inflation, basically we want to introduce a measure for inflation, and because of the inflation, we are going to have a concept, a so-called concept of actual dollars versus constant dollars. And we can also introduce equivalence calculation under inflation. Basically, inflation is very similar to interest rate. So now you have to take into account the rate of inflation simply because the value of money has now changed due to the rate of inflation. Okay, this is an example that was taken from the textbook, all-time top 10 movies. Yeah? Gone with the Wind is number 1, but this is being released in 1939, 1939, as opposed to, let's say, Star Wars being released in 1977. But it shows their total gross in terms of the amount of money that was obtained at that time. And when you adjust it to the current value, you can see that Gone with the Wind has the highest amount in terms of the actual value that is being used. Snow White and Seven Dwarfs is the second one, Star Wars is the third one, E.T. is the fourth one, etc. So when we talk about inflation and its impact on the economic analysis, we have to understand into inflation sebenarnya. And how do we measure inflation? And how do we incorporate the effect of inflation in equivalence calculation? Pernah dengar kan? I'm sure all of you have heard about inflation ataupun nama sebenarnya inflasi. This is something that is being measured every year, and simply because it will have an effect on the economy, very strong effect on the economy. So what is inflation actually? We can talk about value of money, and I think we understand this already. We have the earning power as well as purchasing power. Earning power, we talk about investment opportunity. You have the money, and you can invest it somewhere else, either in the banks, in mutual fund, or in stocks, or in terms of projects. And out of the investment, you will gain dividend or return, etc. But when we talk about purchasing power, there will be a decrease in purchasing power, and that is what we call inflation. And if the opposite of it is deflation, which is the increase in purchasing power. But this one really happens, and most of the time we talk about inflation. Maknanya inflation ni ialah kenaikan harga barang-barang, dan disebabkan kenaikan harga barang-barang tersebut, nilai duit kita dah menjadi lebih rendah. Ini yang macam contoh yang saya bagi dulu lah. Misalnya di zaman dulu saya boleh beli nasi lemak 50 sen. 10 sen saya boleh beli nasi lemak. Mungkin zaman 90-an boleh beli 50 sen. Tapi sekarang ni zaman 2021 ni, satu nasi lemak paling susahlah nak cari yang RM1 pun. Paling murah mungkin RM1.50 ataupun RM2. Itu yang paling simple sekali. Kalau you letak telur goreng, letak ayam lagi, harga dia dah semakin meningkat. So the amount of money that we have in terms of the purchasing power has gone down because of inflation. Yeah, this is an example. In 1990, you could buy 50 Big Macs in year 1990 for 100. But in 2003, you can only buy 40 Big Macs because the same amount, which is 100, now the price has increased and your purchasing power has gone down from 50 Big Macs to 40 Big Macs. And if you convert this in terms of percentage, there is a 25% increase or price change due to inflation. So the 100 in year 2003 has only $80 worth of purchasing power in of the 1990. So nampak dah konsep dia, maknanya nilai duit tu berubah. Sebelum ni kita dah bincang because of interest rate also nilai duit berubah. Sekarang ni because of inflation nilai duit pun berubah juga. Ya. So maknanya in our analysis we have to consider the interest rate as well as the inflation rate because this one will affect the value of money over time. This is the example of deflation. Maybe in terms of petrol, in US they call it gas, unleaded gas tu maksudnya unleaded petrol lah. You could purchase 63.69 for 100 gallons of unleaded gas a year ago for 100 ringgit, but now you can purchase 80 gallons of unleaded gas. Now the price of oil has gone down. So $1.57 per gallon menjadi 1.25 per gallon. So this is a 20.38% price change due to deflation. Yeah. So deflation ni boleh berlaku, bukan kata tak berlaku, tetapi jarang berlaku lah. Mungkin untuk minyak, mungkin sebab harganya fluctuate. Kita dapat lihat juga misalnya harga komoditi seperti palm oil pun dia dulu tinggi, sekarang menjadi rendah misalnya, tapi ada masa juga dia menjadi tinggi balik. So bila ada perubahan begitu, it is possible to have a deflation, but for most of the products dalam pasaran ni selalunya harga dia meningkat. The price is going up in general. So the overall for the country there is always an inflation rather than deflation. So in terms of the terminology, we have a producer price index. This is a statistical measure of industrial price change compiled monthly by the US Department of Labor. Tapi maybe that is not so important in terms of inflation, tetapi yang lebih important is consumer price index. So this is a statistical measure of change over time of the prices of goods and services in major expenditure groups such as food, housing, apparel, transportation and medical care, typically purchased by urban consumers. So dekat Malaysia pun kita ada consumer price index. Nanti saya tunjuk, kalau tak salah saya ada dalam nota ni. CPI, Consumer Price Index, it is being measured by I'm not sure Kementerian something lah. Nanti kita tengok data dia. So from this Consumer Price Index, kita boleh mengira average inflation rate, which is a single rate that accounts for the effect of varying yearly inflation rates over a period of several years. And also we can determine the general inflation rate, F bar, tadi F ni sekarang F bar, the average inflation rate calculated based on the CPI for all items in the market basket. Dia nak measure inflation rate ni, dia ambil certain, they assume there's several items in the basket and they measure the average price of all those items, and from there they determine the general inflation rate, as well as later on we can also determine the average inflation rate. So, in order to measure the inflation, we are going to have the Consumer Price Index (CPI) ini yang saya katakan tadi. It's a very important measurement, but most of us could not be bothered by it lah. Tetapi kita boleh ada data tersebut. So the CPI compares the cost of a sample market basket. Itu dia kata market basket, maknanya satu basket yang mengandungi item-item tertentu yang berada di pasaran, of goods and services in a specific period relative to the cost of the same market basket in an earlier reference period. This reference period is designated as the base period. So dia akan measure lah CPI berdasarkan satu baseline. Let's say for example, baseline dia in 82-84 is 100. Now they measure the same amount items in 2002 or now 2022, and calculate the price. And from there you could have this consumer price index, have the CPI, which is a ratio of that price over the base period. So if you look at this data, of course this is US data, the base period of 93 up to 2002, and there's a new CPI based on the base of 82 to 84, as opposed to the old CPI, which is based from the year 1967. So you can see that every year it goes up. Every year it goes up, and this is what the inflation. Tetapi gasoline, you can see there is some fluctuation here. Dia ada 63.9, 61.7 goes up and goes down and goes up again, but now it goes down again. Due to the fluctuation in the petrol price. Still also, there is some increase and there's a decrease. Passenger car, ini dekat Malaysia ni passenger car saya rasa sentiasa meningkat every year. Dekat US ni ada juga penurunannya. So from the CPI, we can calculate the average inflation rate. So for example, the base price is 100, which is year 0. Inflation rate year 1 is 4%, inflation rate year 2 is 8%. So average inflation rate over 2 years. So kita find the actual inflated price at the end of year 2. So 100 ni increased by 4%, then increased by 8%, so it becomes 102.32. So we can find the average inflation rate by solving the following equivalence equation. So ini lebih kurang macam formula untuk pengiraan future dan present value lah. So you can imagine this is the present value, this is the future value. So you find the rate I, which in this case the inflation average inflation rate F, you get it about 5.98%. So sama lah, the same concept ni lah. I itu digantikan dengan F. So from all these prices CPI ni, kita boleh mengira average inflation rate, and you can see in terms of the consumer price index, the average inflation rate is 2.47. Bila you comparekan 2003 and 2000, so you can always do 2022 and 2020. Tetapi untuk setiap harga-harga lain tu adalah rate yang berbeza. Tetapi kita always melihat untuk this market basket ni, dan dia punya peningkatan itu dikira sebagai the average inflation rate. Untuk setiap item itu dia boleh berbeza lah. Tetapi kita sekarang ni mengira untuk satu collection of items, dan kita boleh lihat peningkatan tersebut. Okay, the general inflation rate, average inflation rate based on the CPI, seperti mana yang ditunjukkan tadi lah, berdasarkan this formula. Kalau tak nampak macam susah, tapi sebenarnya is a present and future value punya formula. So you can calculate F ni, sorry dia punya ni nampak macam kelang kabut sikit, tapi you boleh lihat balik nota yang dalam sedia ada itu, you boleh nampak yang telah ditutupkan. So given, for example, this data, year 0 sampai year 3, with this cost 504, 538, 577, 629, etc. Yeah. What are the annual inflation rates and the average inflation rate over 3 years? So you boleh kira lah, for example, inflation rate during year 1, ini tolak ini, dibahagikan dengan year 0 ni dapat 8.83. Secondly, kalau dibandingkan year 2, 7.17, year 3, 9.10, dan over the 3 years tu kita boleh ambil lah dia punya average inflation rate to be 7.69. So this is the average inflation rate. Untuk kamu boleh kira data yang sama kalau kita ada data. Saya ingat daripada kementerian trade tu yang ada data. Kamu boleh Google sedikit dan boleh cari data untuk Malaysia. Okay, so those are what we mean by inflation and how do we calculate the inflation rate, and so on. Now, the next question is how do we calculate the equivalence ataupun adjusting the our cash flow due to the inflationary effect. So dia adalah konsep actual and constant dollars ni yang sebenarnya boleh kita gunakan untuk mengambil kira kesan inflation. Tetapi untuk analisis kamu dalam khusus ataupun dalam fire design project tak perlulah, perlu kita ambil kira untuk inflation sebenarnya, tapi kita boleh masukkan sekali je dalam our interest rate itu untuk mengambil kira kesan inflation. Sebelum tu kita pergi sedikit kepada terminologi actual dollars, estimate of future cash, estimates of future cash flows for year end that take into account any anticipated changes in amount caused by inflationary or deflationary effects. Constant dollars is estimates of future cash flow for year end in constant purchasing power, independent of the passage of time or base period. So basically, the difference is that actual dollars takes into account the changes due to inflation or deflation effect. Tapi constant dollars kita buang kesan tersebut, so it becomes a constant purchasing power dan independent of the time because of inflation. Tapi because of interest tu masih ada lah. So kita boleh convert from constant to actual dollars. So this is basically the formula. Basically kita take into account lah because of the inflationary effect tu, the percentage kita mengambil kira those thing. Sama lah seperti kamu mengira present and future value tu. So in terms of constant dollars, kita ada misalnya contohnya nilai 1,000, inflation rate of 8%, after 3 years, the actual dollars menjadi 1,260. Tetapi the constant dollars it still becomes 1,000. So kita boleh melihat dalam table ini conversion from constant to actual dollars. It's very similar to that the concept of interest rate seperti mana yang pernah kita jumpa dulu lah. Cuma sekarang ni kita mengambil kira perubahan yang berlaku dan kita tidak mengambil kira kesan inflation itu of 5%. So you can see that the net cash flow in constant dollars daripada minus 250,000, kemudian 100,000, 110,000, tapi dalam actual cash flow is lebih meningkat lah because of that 5%. Because of that 5%. So constant dollars ni sentiasa lebih rendah daripada actual dollars, actual dollars. So this is another way to represent perubahan tersebut. Maknanya sekarang ni because of the 5% inflation rate, your purchasing power has reduced by 5%. Tapi kalau you nak kira constant dollars, you can take into account those 5% lah. Conversion from actual to constant dollars, the other way around pun kita boleh kira lah. Maknanya 1260 tadi is actual dollars, you back calculated of that 8% tu you boleh dapat nilai 1000. So dia ada nilai maksudnya. So the thing is the constant dollars ni kita buang kesan inflationary tu, kita buang. So we have the actual in a way actual purchasing power lah in that sense. Okay, so this is an example of conversion from actual to constant dollars. So this is cash flow in actual, which is 20,000, 20,000, 20,000, etc. Conversion at 5 equals to 5%. Dan cash flow in constant dollars, nilai 20,000 tu, okay, first year atau 0 year menjadi 20,000. Kemudian dia menjadi sudah nilai 19,000, kemudian 18,000 because of the decrease in the purchasing power. Loss in purchasing power tu dia semakin berkurang. So this is an example how to compare the winning prices in two different points in time. Jack Nicklaus won his first Masters tournament in 1963. The price was 20,000. Phil Mickelson won his first Masters tournament in 2004. The price amount was 1.17 million. So siapa yang mempunyai nilai yang lebih besar lah sebenarnya. So sebenarnya sama lah kalau kita mengambil kira in terms of the interest rate. Saya rasa kita dah tunjukkan contoh seperti ini kalau kita mengambil kira dari sudut interest rate dulu. Tetapi sekarang kita nak melihat daripada sudut pandangan inflation, apa yang berlaku dalam penggunaan kita begitu. So dalam kes ni kita melihat in terms of the average inflation rate iaitu 4.525%, yang berubahlah daripada 1963 kepada 2004. And the average inflation rate between 1963 and 2004 is about 4.52% per year. So 1.17 million in 2004 would have a purchasing power of 190,616 in 1963. In 1963. Lebih tinggi lah. Jack Nicklaus tadi menang 20,000 je, tapi sebenarnya kalau 1.17 juta tadi, in terms of purchasing power, it is more than 20,000. It is 190,000. So Jack yang menang 2004 tu lebih untung lah. If Jack invested his prize money in 1963 at 5.65% inflation-free interest rate, the prize money would go to match Phil's 2004 price. So 1963, 20,000 tadi at 5.65%, dia akan menjadi 190,616. Tetapi sebenarnya nilai yang diperolehi oleh Phil tadi itu ialah lebih tinggi lah, which is in $1 million. So how do we take into account the calculation of our cash flow under inflation? So this is the last part of this chapter ni. Kita nak melihat lah. Equivalence calculation under inflation, kita boleh melihat types of interest rate, which is the market interest rate, which is I, and inflation-free interest rate, which is I dot. Type of cash flow, we can do it in terms of constant dollars or as well as actual dollars. And types of analysis method, we have the constant dollar analysis and actual dollar analysis. So another terminology here, inflation-free interest rate, and estimate of the true earning power of money when the inflation effects have been removed, also known as the real interest rate. Dan keduanya is market interest rate which takes into account the combined effects of the earning value of capital and any anticipated changes in purchasing power, also known as the inflation-adjusted interest rate. Ini kita nak paling mudah nak menceritakan ini lah. So market interest rate sebenarnya telah mengambil kira inflation, telah mengambil kira inflation sebab dia punya purchasing power tu disebabkan oleh interest rate dan disebabkan oleh inflation terangkum sekali lah. Tetapi kita boleh mengira so-called inflation-free interest rate dengan membuang kesan inflation tadi, removekan dia. So how do we do that? Is that we have to work in terms of the constant dollar analysis lah. Estimate all future cash flow in constant dollars. Use I prime as an interest rate to find the equivalent. Kalau nak buat dalam actual dollar analysis, estimate all future cash flow in actual dollars. Use I as interest rate to find the equivalent. I ini tadi ialah market interest rate. So kita boleh gunakan actual dollar analysis. Kalau nak tolak inflation, kita boleh gunakan inflation-free interest rate, and we do that in terms of the constant dollar analysis. Tak apalah, I mean, saya ingat you don't have to worry about this thing because analysis kita jarang gunakan. Kita always gunakan actual dollar analysis. Kerana apa? Kerana this is the based on the actual rate lah. That's why dalam penilaian kita untuk funding design project kita menggunakan MARR, minimum yang jauh lebih tinggi daripada interest rate pasaran. So bila jauh lebih tinggi itu maknanya dia telah mengambil kira kesan inflation, dia telah mengambil kira banyak kesan-kesan yang lain tu and risiko-risiko lain yang mungkin wujud, and that's why we set it at very high interest rate, very high minimum attractive rate of return. So we don't have to worry lah. Cuma ini nak menunjukkan kepada kamu kesan atau pengiraan sekiranya kita nak mengambil kira inflation rate dan sebagainya lah. So constant dollar analysis in the absence of inflation or economic analysis up to this point, in fact, is a constant dollar analysis. Constant dollar analysis is common in the evaluation of many long-term public projects because government do not pay income tax. For private sectors, income taxes are levied based on taxable income in actual dollars, and actual dollar analysis is more common. So ini pun kita boleh lihat, maknanya dalam banyak pengiraan sebenarnya kita menggunakan actual dollars. Dan dalam kes-kes yang seperti katakan tadi lah, bila kita nak predict profitability, kita perlu mengambil kira interest rate yang bersesuaian untuk memastikan bahawa semua kesan-kesan tadi telah diambil kira. Okay, untuk actual dollar analysis, method 1 is deflation method. Step 1 is bring all cash flow to have common purchasing power. And step 2, consider the earning power. Consider the earning power is based on the interest rate. Keduanya ialah adjusted discount method. We can combine step 1 and 2 into one step and get one interest factor ataupun interest rate yang telah mengambil kira inflation itu. So these are the two things. Okay, you can look at example 4.6. Pertamanya is convert actual dollars to constant dollars. Cash flow in actual dollars is banyak. Macam this is the cash flow lah from year 0 to year 5. We can multiply by deflation factor in order to get the cash flow in constant dollars. So this is the cash flow in constant dollars. Mengambil kira 5% inflation rate. Keduanya is convert constant dollars to equivalent present worth. And from this constant dollars ini tadi, kita boleh kira the present worth-nya itu pada interest rate tertentu, which is misalnya dalam kes ni 10% lah. Dan dari situ kita boleh mengira dia punya equivalent present worth dan dapatlah present worth-nya to be 45,268. So this is one step. Keduanya juga kita boleh mengambil kira kedua-dua faktor tadi, which is about 50% lah sebenarnya. So adjusted discount method ni step kita combine interest rate tadi dan inflation rate to get one rate yang kita boleh gunakan. So this is the formula ni. Maknanya this is the interest rate campur dengan inflation rate campur dengan multiplication of the product. Kita akan dapat satu rate yang kita boleh gunakan lah pada cash flow yang kita gunakan. So this is market interest rate under continuous compounding dengan mengambil kira di inflation rate. Jadi kita boleh lihatlah cash flow in actual dollars tadi, kalau kita gunakan 0.155, we get the same thing. We get the equivalent present worth of 45,268. So maknanya sekarang ni the changes in terms of our value duit tadi bukan setakat disebabkan oleh interest rate, tapi ditambahkan lagi dengan inflation rate. Dan bila kita ambil kira begitu, you can see lah dia punya rate tidak dari about 15.5%, but we can get the actual present worth in terms of that. Example 4.8, equivalent calculation with composite cash flow elements. Convert any cash flow element in constant dollars into actual dollars, then use the market interest rate to find the equivalent present value. So ini kita juga boleh, maksudnya sekarang ni kita nak cuba cari lah dia punya equivalence to in terms of actual dollars. So you can readjust the amount kepada nilai yang sebenarnya, nilai actual dollars yang sebenarnya. So misalnya 30,000 pada 6%, 13 years it becomes 63,988 dan seterusnya lah. So this is the actual amount in terms of the actual dollars. Okay. So as a summary, the consumer price index CPI is a statistical measure of change over time of the prices of goods and services in major expenditure groups such as food, housing, apparel, transportation, and medical care, typically purchased by urban consumers. Kemudian, inflation is a term used to describe a decline in purchasing power, evidence in an economic environment of rising prices. Tetapi deflation is the opposite, increase in purchasing power, evidence by falling prices. So CPI ini saya harap kamu boleh Google tengok what would be the consumer price index untuk negara kita, CPI information. Nanti mungkin saya tunjukkan sedikit di mana kita boleh mencari maklumat ini ya. So inflation dan deflation ni saya harap kamu boleh faham lah. Okay, the general inflation rate is an average inflation rate based on CPI and ini yang kita kira sebagai general inflation rate. Specific individual commodities do not always reflect the general inflation rate. Kita boleh kira secara the inflation rate for each item. Ya, tetapi dia mungkin berbeza lah macam kita lihat tadi ya, minyak berbeza, minyak boleh inflation dan deflation, tetapi yang bila kita ambil secara keseluruhannya ianya sentiasa meningkat dan itu dinamakan sebagai general inflation rate. Dan project cash flow may be stated in one or two forms, in actual dollars or in constant dollars. Dan interest rate for project inversion may be stated in one or two form, which is the market interest rate ataupun inflation-free interest rate. Dan untuk mengira the present worth of actual dollars, we can use a two-step or one-step. Sama ada kita combinekan interest rate dengan inflation rate tadi sekali, ataupun kita kira secara dua kali lah. Kira dulu berdasarkan satu rate dan gunakan satu rate lagi untuk mengira. You get the same answers lah. Supposed to combine those two rate together. Okay, so let's see. Kita cuba Google sekarang. Kita cuba sekejap. See. Okay, saya nak cuba cari CPI for Malaysia. Malaysia Consumer Price Index. Ni Department of Statistics. Department of Statistics Malaysia official portal. You can see here prices, producer price index Malaysia. Producer price index increased 12.6% in November, mainly driven by surging cost of raw material. Consumer price index Malaysia, CPI showed an increase of 3.3% and surpassed the long-term average headline inflation of 1.6%. So that's why harga barang meningkat lah. Selalunya dia buat 1.6% inflation, tapi sekarang dah jadi 3.3%. So dekat Department of Statistics punya portal ni sebenarnya you boleh dapat all those information. Semua information yang you nak tu. Tapi saya percaya tidak ramai yang mengambil, mencari maklumat inilah, kecuali orang-orang ekonomi, orang-orang yang berkenaan. Ini sebagai contohlah Consumer Price Index Malaysia for November, Wednesday, 22 Disember 2021. You can see this is the Consumer Price Index punya market basket tadi yang saya katakan tadi. Dia mengambil kira food, non-alcoholic beverage 1.9%. Sorry, dia compare Oktober dengan November. Semuanya meningkat lah. If tengok 2.7%, kebanyakan ada yang negatif juga. Tapi ada yang meningkat daripada sebelumnya lah. Ada yang menurun. Tapi ini adalah untuk setiap sektor ataupun jenis-jenis produk yang berbeza tersebut. Okey, kamu kena baca dekat sini lah, yang boleh dapat maklumat-maklumat seperti ini tentang inflation ini, dan daripada situ we will learn more. So apa yang saya nak katakan dekat sini, inflation ni is something yang menyebabkan our purchasing power semakin berkurangan, reduce purchasing power. Jadi dalam kita punya analisis sebenarnya, we need to be able to understand lah this concept ni dan bagaimana nak mengambil kira perkara ini dalam penggunaan kita. Cuma itu yang saya katakan tadi, untuk you punya project analysis ni, bila kita gunakan interest rate itu, kita boleh set pada MARR yang agak tinggi lah, dan bila dia mengambil kira itu, dia telah mengambil kira semua risiko inflation effect, interest rate effect dan sebagainya. So we are okay in that sense. Cuma we need to understand lah. Dalam pengiraan harga barang ni pun, mungkin this is one way also for you to be able to estimate how much the price of items akan meningkat kalau kita ada maklumat-maklumat mengenai inflation ini dan sebagainya. So dekat sini kamu boleh lihat dari segi statistiknya, you boleh lihatlah agriculture, construction, economic indicators, environment, household income, expenditure dan sebagainya. Boleh klik lah tengok apa maklumat-maklumat yang diberikan dekat sini. Sebagai contoh, saya klik dekat sini household income dan expenditure. Let's see. Macam-macam lah maklumat dekat sini. This is you can read. In 2019, average monthly household income is 7,901. Adalah maklumat tentang property dan sebagainya. So this is also something that you can go through and read and see some of the information that is given by the Department of Statistics. Ini ada capsule of understanding the consumer price index, apa dia consumer price index, dan CPI weight dan sebagainya. Okey, saya stop share. Ini kejap tengok di sini. Okey, for our CPI ni dia mengambil kira 530 goods and services are collected on monthly basis. So daripada sini lah dia mengambil kira semua nilai-nilai tadi dan mengira CPI, Consumer Price Index-nya untuk negara kita. So dia mengambil kira semua item-item ni together, dan daripada situ dia dapat the CPI for our country. Apa nilai CPI untuk our country tu nanti kita carilah dekat sini ya. Okey, itu saja daripada saya. Saya ingat saya harap kamu boleh faham konsep inflation ini dan cuba memahaminya. Kalau tak faham boleh baca nota-nota yang ada tu. Kalau tak faham juga nak tanya saya, you can always ask me. So itu saja daripada saya. Sekian, terima kasih. Assalamualaikum dan selamat malam.